Hi, welcome everyone. It is Justin Paperny, 545 on, Tuesday, August 21st. I'm going to do something I've never quite done before. I received a media request this afternoon from a radio station in San Francisco. They asked if I could share some insights on the Manafort verdict and the Cohen guilty plea. And I said, sure, I'd be happy to. So I think they do it on their podcast and on their radio station. And when they ask me questions, I'm going to record it live, and then I'll post the video once I'm done. For those of you who are going to go to prison, who are expecting to go to prison, I hope you'll find value in some of the responses that I give when answering these questions about Manafort and Cohen. So stay tuned.
Hey, Justin, how you doing?
I'm good, bud. How are you?
Good. Let me get you on hold. Chip will be with you here in just a couple of minutes, okay?
Excellent.
Great, thank you.
Cool.
Just text KG.
Going to jail, Justin Paperny is the author of Lessons from Prison and Ethics. Is that Lessons from Prison and Ethics in Motion? Is that what it is, Justin?
That's right. I wrote Lessons from Prison in Prison and then Ethics in Motion the first year after my release from prison.
Oh, okay, good. Now, you were a stockbroker and you went to Taft Federal Prison for 18 months. Would you get some insider information? What was the crime?
I was a securities broker at Bear Stearns, then UBS. Then I pled guilty to a count of conspiracy fraud, essentially aiding and abetting a client's hedge fund fraud. He got 5 years. I got 18 months at Taft Camp.
You must be right at the end of Bear Stearns, because Bear Stearns went under in '08.
Thank you. I remember when I was in prison and I saw that Bear went belly up along with my shares. So yes, I was already in prison when I think when JP Morgan agreed to buy it at like $2 and then $8 or $10. Yep.
Yeah, that scene in The Big Short is heartbreaking. But I've told people before, Bear Stearns actually had a real healthy and good culture inside there. You know, it was the people in the real estate division that kind of sold them down the road, right?
It was a great firm for a long time. It was akin to a Goldman Sachs in many ways, and then it crumbled and couldn't. It was a great old school trading firm. It was very sad to see it go down.
Well, those mortgage bonds brought a lot of people down, and there was a lot of fraud in there. It's unbelievable in that whole period of time that nobody went. One person, I think, two people maybe went to prison in that. And unreal of all the people that were selling credit default swaps that they knew were on stuff they knew was crap. Anyway, that's another world. So you learned a lot from that about going into a federal prison. You obviously didn't go into a federal prison like Leavenworth, which they call the hot house, something bad like that. But you now have a business of helping people like white collar advice or people that are going inside. How bad are federal prisons for white-collar criminals?
You know, they're nothing compared to what's sensationalized on TV. I've said part of the reason you'll see so few films about life in a federal prison camp is so few people would watch them. The reality is there's very little violence. Every prisoner in a low or camp has a clearly defined release date. The reality is the highest value in many of these prisons is boredom and learning to overcome the inevitable boredom. And that's what I would tell Cohen or Manafort to any white-collar defendant who may serve time in prison. Without the right plan, 2 months or 2 years can feel like 20. So they won't see violence, but they will have to adjust in a way that doesn't make them feel like they're serving a life sentence. Without proper preparations, it feels like forever.
What are those preparations?
Well, you have to, if you look at people specifically in society who are successful, they have values and they have a daily routine. If it's exercise, if it's reading, if it's writing, if it's growing their network, you can do those same things in prison. I read, I wrote, I connected with my family, I taught classes, I educated myself. You can do the same thing from the inside of a federal prison. The problem is it is a utterly hopeless environment, and it's frankly not supported by staff or the guards. And because of that, it's very easy to associate with other prisoners who bring you down, who complain about their sentence, which is something a white-collar defendant should never do. One key piece of advice I give to any white-collar defendant is to never lament over the length of your sentence, because you could be bunking with a guy serving 20 years for a ridiculous mandatory minimum sentence, and he doesn't want to hear about your 2 years for tax fraud or something akin to that. So something specific, create a daily routine, much like you do in society, and the time will be more productive.
Yeah, it's funny. Do you remember this? Did you see the movie Miss Sloane with who's the girl I love from Chastain? She says at the end, she says, well, women's prison isn't so bad. Prison isn't so bad if you don't have a penis. So here we don't shiv each other. We have support groups, and there's a black market in lipstick.
Well, there's a lot of black markets as well. You'll find a lot of trading of mackerel and tuna and stamps, and a whole prison economy and prison hustle takes place. And I encourage any prisoner to understand the environment of corrections before you seek to manipulate it, as many prisoners do.
I would imagine one hard part about being in prison, Justin, again, we're talking to Justin. Did I get your name right? Paperny, is that right?
Yeah, it's Paperny, but I've heard that a long time, so I'm used to it.
I want to get it right. Sorry. Paperny. Anyway, author of Lessons from Prison. I guess the real question for me is that if I was inside, I'd be worried about when I got out. I mean, I got this felony conviction. You've made good from what you had fall on your head. Whether it was intent, you're handing it or not. And everybody screws up. It just depends, I guess. I grew up kind of on the streets and stole cars when I was a kid, but I was white. The couple times I got pinched, my dad was a cop. I got out. Things happen to people. They're just bad luck sometimes. They go inside. And I would imagine that's got to weigh on you, really. The people that did exactly what you did and got away with it. And that's got to be a part of the bitterness, right?
Well, for sure. I mean, in my case, it was easier to go to prison because I did it. And there are a myriad defendants in prison who, at worst case, it should have been handled civilly. So it's much harder to serve time and prepare for the other side when you don't believe you should be in prison. And I know everyone says that. There's this joke that if you're in prison, you say you're not guilty. The reality is most guys will say they're guilty. They did it. But there are some people in this country that incarcerate so many people at such a massive rate who should not be in prison. So for those people who truly feel as if they've been wronged, or the low-hanging fruit that you referenced earlier of no major CEO of the mortgage meltdown going to prison, it's the mortgage brokers, the lenders, the salesmen who pay the price. It's harder for them to prepare for the other side because they've lost so much. It was easier for me at 33. For the guys that are 50, 60, 70 years old who have to reboot after a lengthy prison term, it's not easy. But to your point about the other side, I encourage all clients or any potential prisoner, from the moment they get in, they have to be thinking about the hardest part, which is actually coming home, coming to the right side of prison boundaries with a felony reputation, with a felony record, a sullied reputation, inability to get a license. It's really tough. So that's why they have to use their time in prison productively, getting ready to come home.
Well, I mean, you've turned the selling of stocks and bonds into the selling of stories. Did you see the movie The 25th Hour with Ed Norton?
I did.
Yeah. I read a story about the hot house, which is Leavenworth, and this is what the story said, Nikki. It said you have three choices when you go in there. One, you can be gang raped. Two, you can be you can join like a white supremacist group, and stab someone and get cred. Right. Or the third one is you can be somebody's sexual concubine. And I thought, is there a fourth choice?
Can I just hide in the corner?
Have you met any of the people that do those people that go inside, do they get the kind of support you give people? I mean, do they get any kind of help as to what to expect?
I think so. I mean, there's myriad resources that exist for people who want to prepare. I have a YouTube channel, White Collar Advice. I give away my book, Lessons from Prison, for free at White Collar Advice. I've written 1,000 blogs since I surrendered to prison a decade ago. So certainly some people reach out and hire our company. Many, of course, do not. Experience tells me the hardest part of the experience is actually right now, before someone actually goes to prison, the unknowing. What's it going to be like? Is my wife going to stick with me? Then you get to prison, you get settled. You almost become desensitized to the culture of confinement. And then you begin to worry about the hardest part. Good God, I'm coming home with a felony conviction. So I am I'm adamant about nurturing your network from prison, working your ass off, reading, writing. There's email now in prison. It was not there when I was there. There's really no excuse to do great things other than you're in a hopeless environment surrounded by a lot of misery and heartache, and you need a lot of will to overcome that, to prepare in spite of that. It's not easy.
I think you're a remarkable person. This is really interesting, and I want to read the book. I'm going to track it down, and we'd love to get you back and talk. Obviously, I think that this is going to have some more relevance to what you do in the next weeks and months ahead. Justin Paperny, again, the book. Check it out. You can find it on Amazon. Lessons from Prison. Good stuff, man. Thank you so much. Hope to talk to you again real soon.
Thanks for the invitation.
Take care, bud.
Okay, so that's something I do frequently, and some takeaways for all of you. They talk about rape and concubine. None of that happens in a camp or a low. That's ridiculous. Zilch, nada. What I said, the hardest part is coming home. Are you ready to come home? Are you using your time in prison productively? Forget about the stuff you see sensationalized on TV. There's nothing to fear in prison other than the inevitable boredom. You've got to create a strategy to overcome that. It's 6 o'clock. I'm done with the interview. My baby is taking a bath. I got to go upstairs and help my wife. Hope you found value in this little radio interview. I got to go. See ya. Back soon. Bye-bye.